Alright, hey guys, this is my review on my potato cannon for a project for Vision Tech. So I'll just kind of show you how I made it, some things I liked that I did, and some things I do differently. And hopefully, if you decide you want to build a potato cannon, this project will help you know the basics. So we'll jump in with the materials. Here's just a common list of things you can, some things you're going to need, and they're really easy to get at any of your local hardware stores like Menards, Lowe's. Um, if your Walmart section has PVC, I went to Menards because I just know my way around there better. But these are the measurements you're gonna need. Um, it your PVC is not going to come in this measurements. I think the combustion chamber PVC pipe comes in 2 feet, so you're gonna have to cut that, um, and you're gonna need to cut your barrel too. But this just gives you everything that you'll need to find. Um, Next thing I want to jump into is my resources. So I think one of the best resources that I had was definitely WikiHow, which surprised me because a lot of times when I've used WikiHow, I feel like they've just left a lot of things out. It wasn't very helpful because of the lack of things that they included. But this one seemed to be very, very helpful. It kind of walks you through from the very beginning to uh, get what you need. Uh, I think this is probably one of the worst parts about it, though. I feel like they kind of leave some of the stuff you need to get. I just like having a list of everything I'll need at the very beginning, but I guess that could just be a personal thing. But they do show you the measurements they used, which I think would work fine. I think mine might have been slightly different, but not by much. But yeah, it just shows you how to cut it. The thing I like most about it is it gives you a quiz at the end of each section, which is kind of just ask you why um, or how you should do a certain thing. Just kind of make sure that you paid attention. So I thought that was very helpful. Um, like this one, it's very important to know in this project if you do decide to get it. I'm not sure if I had it in this list, but you will need schedule 40. Yeah, so I didn't mention that. You need schedule 40 PVC because if you get another PVC pipe type, it won't be thick enough and it could break under the pressure of the combustion chamber, which is very, very bad. But yeah, this is a really good website. I thought it did a couple things that I didn't do just because I thought they were unneeded. And I think my project came out fine without them. I think it's just a preference thing. But another website that I really, really liked was called The Art of Manliness, which is just a awesome name in itself. Um, but it's similar to the WikiHow. One thing I like better about it though is the pictures that it gives are actual pictures, not just little cartoons. So I think that's very helpful, um, especially if you're a visual learner. Once again, though, I think they leave some things out, and they did not install an ignition switch like I did, so um, they just used a lighter. So I had to find other videos for that. Um, but I think overall this website's pretty good. I do think you kind of just want to watch. I watched quite a few videos, and I think those are very helpful because um, it it just kind of shows some things that the websites might have left out. Um, this video, I think this is actually the wrong one. This video that I'm about to pull up, I think was very helpful. And I think the part that's most helpful about it, oh, maybe that was the right video. The thing that I think is most helpful about this video is that it takes you through the store where he buys everything. So I have it muted here, but I think that helped because it'll kind of show you what the things you'll need is going to look like. I know I used it when I was at the store because if you're not really familiar with the parts, actually seeing them and where they will be lined up. In most hardware stores, they have a general layout. So I thought this was very helpful for that reason. So he kind of walks you through the store, and then he shows you the measurements and how he cut um, his pipe, which I did a similar method. I used a handsaw. Some people used scroll saws. I didn't have that great of access to that, so I just used some hand saws. But yeah, just I think seeing him put it together um, helps a lot of people because just seeing, somebody else do it is easier than, kind of trying to piece together what's going on in the pictures. Another very important part here that he's doing is cleaning off the PVC pipe, making sure that there's nothing going to screw up your glue, and then just watching him, glue it up. But the main thing, um, besides seeing him buy the actual PVC pipe, was the ignition. Um, that the ignition is very similar to the one I had, and I liked this layout better than how some of them had them wired in. I thought this one was a better layout, so I used that. So that's the great thing about this project is you can kind of see what other people have done and take bits and pieces of what they've done and kind of modify your own little potato cannon, which I thought was really cool to see how many different ways people have done it. You can really make it as simple or as complex as you want. I think I chose a fairly simple one just because of my time constraints, but now I'll get to the construction process itself. I'll pull up some pictures here. So I don't have very many pictures of me cutting it, unfortunately, because I was cutting it and didn't have anyone to take the pictures, and I wasn't really thinking about that. But I'll just get some pictures of the PVC pipe. So this is the PVC pipe before it's cut. You can see the ignition switch there, very similar to the one you saw in the video. But that's PVC pipe, semi put together but not cut yet. Here's a better up close picture of the ignition switch. I'll just kind of explain the parts here and what they do. So this is the combustion chamber right here, this long piece in the middle. And what that does is it basically just acts as a holding chamber for your hairspray. So when you ignite it, it then uses the flames and the energy being released to push it out the cannon or out the barrel, which will be attached to this adapter. This is a 4-inch adapter to a 2-inch, which is going to be the diameter of your barrel. And this is just a better, I think I already showed that. So obviously this is what it was going to look like when I got it put together. Another key part is this little coupler right here. You unscrew this cap and that is where you spray in your hairspray. So you really want to make sure that you glue it up really tight around that area, which will lead me to the next point, which is the gluing and the sanding. So before you get to the gluing, you want to sand, which is very, very important. Nobody likes to sand, but especially if you were like me, my cuts weren't as straight as I would have liked them to be. So I had to sand quite a bit. Thankfully, I had access to the shop room for a day, so I got in there and sanded everything down. But yeah, here you can see here, uh, I used this belt sander right here to sand my um, combustion chamber where I cut it at. Thankfully, I only had to sand one side because the other side was smooth. You don't really need to cut both sides. You just cut one side to length and then sand it. But you want to make sure you sand the inside, especially make sure it's smooth so there's nothing that's going to happen inside the chamber. Make sure to clean it out. In the video, I think he used an alcohol solution to clean it out. Every other video I saw, they just used a rag or a t-shirt to just make sure there's no dust or anything in there. But definitely make sure that all the parts around the barrel, where the barrel and the combustion chamber connect, are sanded very well because you don't want any um, leaks from there. This is the glue that you're going to need. It's actually called PVC cement. A lot of it will be purple. Um, I think that's the standard, but I found a clear PVC cement because I just didn't want to see any purple. I just wanted it to be white because I'm kind of OCD like that. I just think it looks better. I got primer, which I don't think is really necessary. Um, that's kind of just like what the alcohol solution would be used for, I guess, but it just takes more time to dry. So it's definitely not a need. I just bought it. Um, but the gluing process is pretty simple. It's like what you'd think it'd be. Um, you just really want to make sure that you really glue it on there, because last thing that you'd want is to get done with your project and you go to shoot it off for the first time and everything blows up, and it's also dangerous. So make sure you have a lot of glue on there. Put glue in both gluing parts. So for example, when I glued up um, I put it inside the coupler and on the combustion chamber. Same with the adapter, and then with where the barrel would go. I put it on the outside of the barrel and the inside of the adapter, and likewise for the rest of it, because you really just want to make sure it's glued on there tight. You don't want any ends popping off or blowing up on you, because that's just dangerous and it's a waste of your time and your money. Um, so for the button or the ignition switch, you're going to need epoxy. This is kind of a different type of epoxy, um, but this is a 1-to-1 ratio. I think most epoxy is pretty similar. This is more of a liquidy, waxy kind of epoxy, but I thought it worked really well because you can barely see the epoxy, and it's super strong. So I really liked that. Um, and then gluing up the button, you can see a picture here. Um, you just want to make sure it's under there, and I put it on its sides, and when it dried, it was very easy to peel it off. So that is one thing I did like about that epoxy. You can see here I'm putting it around the barrel where it meets the adapter, because I thought about using ether spray for my fuel, but I decided against it last moment because it's not as safe as hairspray, and obviously safety is very important, and it can actually cause the PVC pipe to explode and go off into shards. So you definitely want to be careful about that. I'll go to my mastery of learning here for a second and kind of just show you some things that I think are very important. Number one, definitely do your research. Like I said, there's many variations, many different ways you can do your PVC pipe. Um, So, you know, there's just several things that come in to play. Um, what you want to do, where you're going to be at, obviously. So, your limited materials. So, just do your research because there's a lot of different ways you can do it and just find the best one that suits you. Um, Troubleshoot, don't be afraid to mess around with it because that's going to be your best way of figuring it out. I had troubles with the ignition switch firing, which I found out was because I wasn't spraying the hairspray very well. Because the day I tested it, it was fairly windy. Um, and like I said, there's several different ways you can use the ignition switch. Some people don't use it at all, they just use a stick lighter. I liked the ignition switch because I thought it was just cooler, but um, yeah, just kind of mess with it. Just make sure you're getting your hairspray in there and you're not completely soaking uh, your ignition switch because I think that's what was happening with mine. It was getting too wet and it was unable to create a spark. So just make sure you're getting it on the walls. And the next thing is the hairspray versus ether spray. I briefly talked about it. I think hairspray is probably the way to go, especially if you're not totally out in the country. Um, you're not going to need anything more powerful than hairspray. Um, like I was just in my backyard, and I'm glad I didn't use ether spray because I think it would have been very loud and slightly destructive. So I would recommend hairspray. I mean, for the safety aspect alone, but I think hairspray unless you have spent extra time making sure that um, your potato gun is ether spray proof. And then how to spray the hairspray. Kind of talked about it with the ignition switch. I'll show you in my video. Um, I was spraying it wrong. Like I said, it was windy, but I think that did affect why it was a misfire in my first video. Um, so yeah, I'll go over that in a little bit, and then just small things matter. Um, when I say that, I mean the gluing, the sanding, you know, just all the things that you don't really want to do, but you have to do because it matters because it makes it safer and it just makes it your product work. So I'll show you the video and I'll kind of talk to you about some of those things. So this is my first video here, or this is my second one, sorry. I apologize for the wind, but this video will kind of just show you how to load it. So there's really not a great way to get the potato in there just besides bashing it on there. I like to kind of just line it up so I know that it's going to be tight over the barrel. And then one of the things you're going to need is a large mashing rod, which is going to get it down in there. Oops. In the video, I mentioned that I go about 3/4 of the way down. Uh, you can see I kind of point to where I have it at. Um, you want to make sure that your potato is far enough down that it'll get enough energy from the combustion chamber to shoot out. But also you want to make sure you don't knock it down into the combustion chamber itself because that could cause damage to your ignition switch if it hit it. Um, but you see I get it loaded and now it's time to spray the hairspray in it. Like I said, it was windy. So you want to make sure that the hairspray is um, far enough away from the ignition switch that it doesn't absolutely soak it, but also close enough that it gets enough hairspray in there. So it didn't work that time. I unloaded it and cleaned off the ignition switch. Um, oops. And then resprayed and it was ready to go. So I'll just kind of show you a video here. Um, of me actually firing the potato cannon. So as you can see there, it works. It's definitely not something that you should ever point at anything you don't want to hurt. I would just recommend it for if you want to shoot paper targets or go out in a field with some friends and shoot it off. So definitely it's something you need to be smart with when you're using, but it's also a lot of fun, and I recommend it for people um, who are just bored, or somebody who just likes to shoot things off like I am. So I thought it was a fun project. I'd recommend it for any students that, like I said, are just kind of into shooting stuff off or just enjoy build projects. Um, so I hope this video helped. Um, and if you choose to build a potato cannon, this video can hopefully guide you and show you some things you should do and some things you shouldn't do. All right, see ya.